Steven Crowder gets targeted by Media Matters, Candace Owens goes at it with Cardi B, and Boris Johnson promotes new bans on annoyance and protest in the UK. This is your March 17th Not to News update. Please like and subscribe if you're looking for daily news content, and let's dive on in. Starting us off from the Wall Street Journal, we have McConnell threatens pileup if Democrats change filibuster rules. This is coming after McConnell got confirmation from Joe Manchin earlier this year that there wouldn't be changes to the filibuster, and this was part of the agreement for when they created the new Senate rules for the upcoming session. However, Manchin seems to be saying that he might be changing its mind. Coming from the Wall Street Journal article, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell threatened Tuesday to grind Senate to a halt if Democrats make any changes to the legislative filibuster after West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, a centrist Democrat, floated the idea of requiring senators to be present and talking on the floor to block bills. This case would not open up an express lane to liberal change. It would not open up an express lane for the Biden presidency to speed into the history books. Mr. McConnell said in a speech Tuesday, the Senate would be more like a 100-car pileup, nothing moving. I want to take a couple of seconds just to explain the importance of the filibuster, at least with how it came to be, and potentially ways, if we were to reform it, what we want to make sure we obtain. The filibuster serves the purpose of maintaining minority representation. What we want to do, and what it should encourage ideally, is that the majority party has to reach over to the minority side to get support. Unfortunately, the way that this has been used has been just polarizing political individuals that just use it to stop the other side. We saw similar things with Bernie Sanders at the end of the Trump presidency, and we're seeing it already during the Biden one. I think what we need to make sure it doesn't do is stop any rules from happening whatsoever, but what we really want to make sure is that there's some compromise happening, and really it should be making sure that the debates happening on the Senate are actual debates. I think there's something to the idea that Manchin's putting out here that requires a senator to be present on the floor talking about the bill, and really something I want to see Congress begin to do more of is actual debate, actual discussion on the bills they're voting on, and let's get rid of things like voting on entire measures that are conglomerates of multiple different pieces of legislation. The fact that there was even debate that the minimum wage was part of COVID relief, to me, is absolutely a hindrance on our democracy, and stuff like this is the stuff we should be targeting. Media Matters is attacking Steven Crowder for using racist stereotypes to attack black farmers. On March 16th, YouTube edition of Louder with Crowder, Steven Crowder and his co-host engaged in a wildly racist bit on black farmers, employing racist stereotypes and offensive language. Co-host Dave Ledoux remarked, "I thought the last thing they would want to do is be farmers. Wasn't that a big problem for hundreds of years? Out of the 3.4 million farmers in the United States, only 45,000 are black. The purpose of the aid in the American Rescue Plan is to lessen the racial gap in the farming community and correct decades of discrimination from the U.S. Department of Agriculture towards black farmers. Conservative media has been predictably smearing this aid provision, framing it as reparations and discriminatory towards white people." And this hits exactly what we were just talking about, that we have something in the COVID American Rescue Plan talking about black farmers. What do black farmers have to do with COVID whatsoever? This is obviously a political mention, and Media Matters is taking this as an attempt to attack Crowder, rather than framing this as an issue that obviously we're hurting the American people by including crap like this in legislation that was attempted to just give relief to the American populace. Coming from CBS News, U.S. says Putin authorized operations to denigrate Biden and boost Trump in 2020 campaign. In the article, Russian President Vladimir Putin authorized influence operations that sought to damage President Biden's candidacy during the 2020 election and boost former President Donald Trump, according to an unclassified report from the U.S. intelligence community on foreign threats to the 2020 elections released Tuesday. The report, released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, outlined 5 key judgments on efforts by foreign actors to influence or interfere in U.S. elections, including Moscow's attempt attempts directed by the highest echelons of the Russian government to undermine public confidence in the electoral process and sow division among Americans. A key element of Moscow's strategy this election cycle was the use of proxies linked to Russian intelligence to push influence narratives, including misleading or unsubstantiated allegations against President Biden, to U.S. media organizations, U.S. officials, and prominent U.S. individuals, including some close to former President Trump and his administration, the declassified report says. Obviously, something we can learn between the 2016 and 2020 elections. Obviously, Trump's 4 years demonstrate that obviously he was so hard on Putin that Putin did not care enough for him to overturn the 2020 election. Obviously, Trump only got in 2016 due to Vladimir Putin's help. So, maybe he did something good. The Hill reports that the Washington Post adds a lengthy correction to report on Trump call with Georgia elections investigator. From the article, the Washington Post has added a lengthy correction to a bombshell report from earlier January that had said that President Trump told Georgia top election investigator during a phone call to find the fraud, and they would be a national hero if they did so. 2 months after publication of the story, the Georgia Secretary of State released an audio recording of President Trump's December phone call with the state's top election investigator. The recording revealed that the Post misquoted Trump's comments on the call based on information provided by a source. The Post said Tuesday in a 129-word correction published atop the story, Trump did not tell the investigator to find the fraud or say she would be a national hero if she did so. Instead, Trump urged the investigator to scrutinize ballots in Fulton County, Georgia, asserting she would find dishonesty there. He also told her that she had the most important job in the country right now. This obviously just shows how deep blueanon is going on in left-wing circles. Candace Owens and Cardi B got in a bit of a Twitter feud, to say the least, attacking both of their romantic relationships. It started with Candace Owens' following tweet. Millions of young girls follow you. At your best, you are self-deprecating and humorous. At your worst, you are naked, shoving your vagina into another woman's vagina while thrusting a topper. You are at your worst on the Grammy stage. Do better at Cardi B. This started from Candace Owens. And I think the one thing to note here, as we talked about the Grammys yesterday, is that this sexual action was happening, at a mainstream news network at, the middle of the night. However, just looking at the exchange, Cardi responds with, not you talking about two women thrusting their vaginas together while your husband and brother slap cock and balls together. Well, would you look at that? And this comes from a fake tweet from Candace saying, yes, my husband did cheat on me with my brother. Yes, he said no when I asked to join them. And this comes from Paul Latil. Candace Owens admitted that her husband cheat with her brother. Candace responds, I'm literally laughing out loud, Cardi, my dear. That is clearly a Photoshop tweet. Only one of us has a husband that sleeps around. Cardi responds, that wasn't photoshopped. You was trending the whole day when you tweeted this, and it was published on a lot of blog outlets. You're right, mine sleeps with you're right. Mine sleeps around. Yours sleeps at your home with your brother, cock boxing while you tweet me. Obviously, this kind of just shows the absolute mess that is going on in the Candace Owens Cardi B drama. And I think it shows how both of them are pretty immature when it comes to this kind of stuff. Boris Johnson is to make protests that cause annoyance illegal with prison sentences up to 10 years. Obviously, in the United States, we don't need to worry about this because we have a First Amendment that protects your right to assemble no matter the reason at all times. This has been demonstrated, throughout the last year that there's been no calls for people to, not see each other. We've been able to go to funerals and weddings and everything over the last year, and that's what makes America great. In the article, they quote the following actions that are being taken. Boris Johnson is set to pass a new law banning protests that are noisy or cause annoyance. The laws would limit the right to protest outside Parliament and carry a max sentence of 10 years. London's police force is under scrutiny for its heavy-handed response to a vigil for Sarah Everin. Once again, let's just remember how many protections we have here in the United States. Our First Amendment, protects us from all kinds of things like this. We're obviously able to assemble whenever we want to scrutinize our government. Earlier this week, we talked about how Tucker Carlson was seemingly going against the world. Particularly, he was being attacked by the Marines after comments he made regarding women in the military, and specifically targeting individuals that were pregnant and if they should be actively serving. The U.S. Marine unit apologized Saturdays for a U.S. Marine unit apologized Saturdays for tweets defending female service members, which it sent out in response to Fox News host Tucker Carlson's criticism of Pentagon policy changes announced last week that are intended to attract more women to the military. A social media user discussed the controversy involving Carlson's comments. The Marine Expeditionary Force Information Group official account tweeted in response to one commenter, "Come back when you served and been pregnant." According to USA Today, the tweet has since been deleted, along with another defending U.S. Master Gunnery Sergeant Scott Stalker, who had denounced Carlson's comments. "We are human and we messed up," the MIG posted. "We intended to speak up for female Marines and it was an effort to support them. They are a crucial part to our corps and we need them to know that. We will adjust fire and ensure the utmost professionalism in our tweets." We strayed away from our brand and realized that. It added in a follow-up tweet, "Our standard practices will be in effect and you can count on us to make us to correct our mistakes going forward." I do think this is actually a really good sign. I was getting a little scared that, you know, our military officials were going to Twitter and raging war on our national press. It's good to know that they have some time freed up that they can go back to bombing Syrians. Finally, coming from Politico is an article that I'd really recommend that you take a minute to read on your own time. I'm only going to hit a couple of the points. How Yang charmed the right on his road to political stardom. In it, they go into how Andrew Yang took time to go onto the Dave Rubin podcast as well as others. In the article, they state Yang told Dave Rubin, whose podcast, The Rubin Report, has interviewed white nationalists, white supremacists, conspiracy theorists, anti-Islamic activists, anti-feminist media personalities, that he came to age during the first Clinton term and considered himself a Democrat. "I wasn't actively involved in local politics and I was living in New York, and as you know, New York is so blue that there isn't much to be engaged with politically," Yang said. Yang also made appearances on the Ben Shapiro Show, the Joe Rogan Experience, and Tucker Carlson Tonight to promote his candidacy. By then, these shows had built a reputation as highly critical of progressive policies and woke culture, a viewpoint that has built them a collective nationwide audience of millions. His appearances were the most high-profile examples of history on the campaign trail, espousing views that were antithetical to today's current Democratic Party, part of the strategy to win back white working-class voters who swung for Trump in 2016. I think there's a lot here that's actually a really good sign. I think it's really good to see that the left is promoting these shows again. Obviously, we want everyone to come on the Ben Shapiro Experience, Joe Rogan, and the Ben Shapiro Show, the Joe Rogan Experience, and Tucker Carlson Tonight. Unfortunately, Yang was the only one with some balls to do so. Unfortunately, I also see that Republicans in the same way don't have the balls to go to the left. And I think part of this is just how overly politicized we are nowadays. You saw the Media Matters, who goes directly for Steven Crowder as soon as he makes a joke involving race. However, if our current commander-in-chief says you're not black unless you vote for him, that obviously gets a free pass. I think organizations like Media Matters are showing how much of an issue it is that this rhetoric goes on, that, you know, the left are only allowed on left-wing programs, the right are only on right-wing programs. Meanwhile, both the Democrats and the Republicans are working their asses off to get the Marines to fight on Twitter so that they can go back to bombing Syrians. This is the world we currently live in. It's time for you to hold your own political party and to hold them, you know, to the fire. Make them feel the fire and the flames that you're tired of this bullshit. And this is your March 17th Not So News update. Once again, please like and subscribe if you're looking for daily news content. Have a good one.